Peter and the Golden Thread is written by Robin Sharma from his book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. We've adapted the story and illustrated it using ChatGPT and the DallE 4 image generator. As you listen, consider how the story resonates with your own challenges of being present. Peter was a young boy who always seemed to be somewhere else in his mind. When he was in school, he dreamed of running in the fields outside. When he was running those fields, he daydreamed about going on a grand adventure. Peter never seemed to truly enjoy the moment he was in. He was always in a hurry to get to the next exciting thing. One bright morning, Peter decided to take a walk in the forest near his home. The forest was a magical place with towering trees and soft green moss that felt like a carpet beneath his feet. The birds chirped a merry tune above, and a gentle breeze made the leaves dance. Peter, feeling a bit tired, found a comfy patch of grass and lay down. Soon, he dozed off. "Peter, Peter," came a strange voice that sounded like a blend of a whisper and a whistle. Peter blinked open his eyes, and he was startled to see an old woman standing above him. She must have been at least 100 years old, with hair as white as snow that fell in tangled strands to her waist. Her eyes twinkled like the stars, and she wore a coat patched with fabrics of every color imaginable. In her hand was a particular magical-looking ball with a hole in the center, and from the hole dangled a shiny gold thread. She smiled at Peter, showing a row of teeth that were surprisingly pearly white. "Peter," she said in a voice that was both ancient and full of warmth, "this is the thread of your life. If you pull the thread just a bit, an hour will pass in a second. If you pull harder, those days will pass by in minutes. And if you pull with all of your might, months, maybe even years, will fly by like a summer breeze." Peter's eyes lit up with excitement. "I'd like to have it, please," he said eagerly. The old woman chuckled softly, her wrinkles folding like an accordion. "Very well, Peter. But remember, use it wisely," she said, placing the ball into his small hands. The very next day, Peter sat in his classroom staring out the window. It was one of those endless days where even the clock seemed tired of ticking. He remembered the golden thread in his pocket and thought, "I wonder." Peter pulled the thread a little bit, and in an instant, he was out in his garden playing with his friends. He grinned, thrilled by the magic. As time passed, Peter grew restless. He wanted to be a teenager and experience the thrill of freedom. So he pulled the thread a little more. Suddenly, Peter found himself as a tall teenager with unruly hair and a very pretty girlfriend named Elise. She loved to laugh, and together they would go on wild bike rides through the hills. One day, as they were speeding downhill, Elise lost her balance and ended up in a pile of leaves. Peter couldn't help but burst out laughing, especially when she stood up covered from head to toe in leaves, looking like a forest creature. Elise giggled, threw a handful of leaves at him in revenge. But soon, Peter grew tired of his teenage life. He wanted to be an adult with a job and no more homework. So he pulled the golden thread again, harder this time. Suddenly, he was a grown-up with a nice house, a loving wife, Elise, of course, and a house full of children. His children were noisy and always running around and getting into trouble. One day, Peter's youngest son painted the dog bright blue, declaring, "I'm making him a superhero." Peter laughed until his sides hurt. The dog didn't seem quite as pleased. As Peter's life sped on, he noticed his reflection one day in the mirror. His once dark hair was now streaked with gray, and his mother, who used to chase him around the garden, had grown frail. Time had passed so quickly, and Peter felt like he was always waiting for the next big thing. never stopping to enjoy where he was. In his later years, Peter found himself an old man. His hair had turned completely white, just like the old woman's in the forest. His beloved Elise had passed on, and his children had grown and moved away. For the first time, Peter felt lonely. He realized he had never taken the time to enjoy the little moments, never gone fishing with his children or danced under the moonlight with Elise. He had rushed through life, always looking ahead. Peter felt sadness like he had never known before. He decided to return to the forest where he had once met the old woman. The forest had changed. Small saplings had grown into mighty oaks, and sunlight filtered through the leaves above, creating a magical golden glow. Peter lay down on a patch of soft grass and closed his eyes, letting his memories wash over him. "Peter, Peter," came a familiar voice. He opened his eyes, and there she was. The old woman turned young again, but her eyes twinkling just as he remembered. "How did you enjoy my gift?" she asked gently. Peter sighed deeply. "At first it was amazing, but now I feel like I missed out on everything. I never got to experience the simple joys, feeling the rain on my face, the warmth of the sun, the laughter of my family. I hurried through it all, and now it's gone." The old woman nodded, her expression kind. "You have learned a valuable lesson, Peter. I will grant you one more wish." Without hesitation, Peter said, "I wish I could go back. I want to live my life over again, but this time savor every moment." The old woman smiled and waved her hand. Suddenly, Peter found himself waking up in his own bed. He looked around. His room was exactly as it had been when he was a boy. He heard his mother's voice calling up the stairs, "Peter, wake up. You're gonna be late for school." Peter leapt out of bed with a grin, feeling lighter than he had in years. He rushed downstairs and hugged his mother tightly, surprising her. "Peter, what's gotten into you?" she laughed. "Nothing, Mom, just happy to be here." From that day on, Peter made a promise to himself. He wouldn't pull on the thread of life to skip ahead. Instead, he would live each moment fully, whether he was running through the forest, dancing in the rain, sitting quietly, or just feeling the breeze on his face. And he went on to live a rich life with joys, adventures, and love, always remembering the lesson of the golden thread. The end.